Good afternoon, media.
My name is John Jack Lemon. I'm a 1964 graduate of Media High School, and I'm going to be sharing some information with you today that might not be commonly known. My presentation is called From Providence to Media and the African American Experience, Juneteenth 2026. The first slide that you see up is of the third Media High School that still stands at State and Monroe Streets. And that building is significant because part of the building was built by my great ancestor, who was born a slave in Virginia, who escaped with his mother and younger sister to Media. His name was George Washington Ridley, and he helped lay the foundation for that building between 1913 and 1915. So he left a lasting testament to the African American presence in Media. Now, what is widely known is that Pennsylvania was founded in 1682. What is not widely known is that Africans and African Americans were already in the colony of Pennsylvania before 1682, when Pennsylvania was controlled by the Swedes, the Finns, before the English came through. So we have a long presence in Pennsylvania and the Delaware Valley area and Media in specific. So by the time of the Revolution, African Americans were already present in and around Media. Now this gentleman that you see here is my great-great-grandfather, Cornelius Ridley. He was born a slave in Virginia. He didn't have a last name. He got his last name and the family name from his master, Major Thomas Ridley. His father was his slave master. He was a mulatto slave. He never knew his mother. He was not allowed to learn the identity of his mother. So he simply adopted his slave master's last name. He escaped alone from Virginia, and he used a very, very fascinating escape mechanism. He hid in plain sight. Because of his fair skin, green eyes, and reddish-brown hair and beard, he was never suspected of being a runaway slave. He deliberately avoided the back roads and swamps because with his appearance, he perpetuated a myth of being a white person traveling on the roads from Virginia to Media. The family historian, Dr. Sam Lemon, estimated that his journey from Southampton County, Virginia to Media may have taken 4 to 6 weeks of daily determined walking. He may or may not have had assistance along the way from the Underground Railroad and many safe houses. His job was a carriage driver, so he was spared the backbreaking toils of being a field slave. He was a carriage driver, and that knowledge that he gained from being a carriage driver allowed him to leave the plantation on many occasions. That was very key in his successful escape from slavery. So he escaped by just walking the roads, stealing his master's clothing, stealing his master's shotgun, and walked from Southampton County to Media, Pennsylvania. He had to leave behind the love of his life, Martha Jane, and her 2 children. Unfortunately, Martha Jane's existence was horrific, demeaning, and degrading. Because Martha Jane, from the time of puberty, was a breeding woman. For the next 10 or so years of her life, she was required to produce an infant for her slave master every 8 to 10 months. She was only able to escape with 2 of her biological children. The rest of the children have been lost to history. They were able to reunite in Media and form the basis of our family here in Media, Pennsylvania. Now, Media was not always called Media. It originally was called the village of Providence, after the biblical term of divine intervention. Media was originally 4 huge farms with some stores and places, private residences in the mix. After Cornelius came to Media, he was able to get a job training horses, and also, next slide shows him one of his first very important jobs as a carriage driver for Hawley and Snowden's department store, which once stood on State Street. Hawley and Snowden's was the first department store in Delaware County. So this image is of my great-great-grandfather, Cornelius Ridley, on the left, driving a mule team somewhere, perhaps, in Media. The next image is of my great-great-grandmother, Martha Jane. The image on the left is when she was still a slave. Dr. Lemon has done just a magnificent job in reconstructing our family history, and this is an actual picture of her while she was a slave in Virginia. It's a very, very rare picture. The only other picture that we have of her was later in life as a free woman in Media. A wife, mother, a homeowner. Because slaves were not legally considered human beings, they had no legal protections. Therefore, you may be familiar with a practice between slaves called jumping the broom, which had no legal status at all. It was just a commitment of one man to one woman who were both slaves, who hoped one day they would be free and raise their own children. This is a copy of Cornelius and Martha Jane's marriage certificate. One of the first items on their agenda was to get a legal marriage under God in the church. They worked hard. They saved their money. And they were able to purchase their first home as free people at 308 North Olive Street. There's a picture of it here. That home was purchased in 1872. The house is no longer there, but the address is. It is now the headquarters of the Rose Tree Media School District. And why that's significant is because one of their children, Cornelius and Martha Jane's children, became the first African American to graduate from Media High School. These are two of the children that Martha Jane was able to escape with. On the left, great uncle George Washington Ridley, born a slave. Escaped with his mother between the ages of 7 and 9, Dr. Lemon?
9.
He helped build the third Media High School. He also was very industrious and became one of the first African American constables of South Media. Later in life, he became an educator. Not bad for a person born a slave, denied an education, formal education, until he became a free person in media. On the right, his younger sister, Rachel Ann Ridley. Stunningly looking like her mother. After the family reunited in media, they added 2 more children, William and Rosa. William became the first African American to graduate from Media High School. He also became the first black attorney in Delaware County in 1891. We believe he was never photographed without a suit and tie. At least we never saw him anything dressed but the nines. This is his picture on the left. Later in life, he was an attorney for over 40 years. And this is a picture of him shortly after graduating from Media High School. Interestingly enough, Dr. Lemon researched and found this 1891 photograph of the induction of William Ridley, Esquire, into the Delaware County Bar Association. You'll notice that there's another African American gentleman in the picture also. My great-grandfather, William Ridley, is on the second row, 4th from the right. The other African-American gentleman is Mr. William Stansbury, and he was instructed to hold a broom in this photograph to make sure that everyone knew that there was only one black attorney in the Delco Bar Association. Ironically, I graduated from high school in 1964 with his great-grandson or great-grandnephew. So the Lemon, Ridley, Stansbury families have been friends since at least 1891. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Next, William had a daughter that he cherished, Maud Ray Ridley, who married and became Maud Ray Ridley Ortega. This is her as an infant on the left and in her early teens on the right. Her father made sure she was always dressed to the nines. Another picture a little bit later, possibly in her early 20s, of father and daughter standing right beside the Soldiers and Sailors Monument right outside of the courthouse. Now, this monument was a tribute to the Union soldiers and the United States Colored Troop soldiers who braved trials and tribulations, fighting for their freedom. These two gentlemen, on the left, Samuel E. D. Kane, and on the right, William Joseph Benson, were two of the models that were used for the statue that currently stands right outside of the courthouse. Two African Americans who also left a legacy in media. Mr. Benson is buried in Honeycomb Graveyard. This is the better picture of the Soldiers and Sailors Monument that was erected in the early 1900s. Still stands today. So anytime you pass by the courthouse, stop, take a look up, and look at those gentlemen who posed for that statue. Several of those gentlemen were African Americans. Again, leaving our legacy in media. Next. African Americans were very prominent athletes. This was a copy of the first known black football team, all black football team, called the Iroquois Independence, approximately 1910 to 1920. And lo and behold, in the back row, second from right, is my great-grandfather, William H. Ridley, who was a great sports fan. Media athletes, African American athletes in North media and South media were very prolific athletes. One of the most prolific in North media was the all-Negro Colored Elks. At one time, there were two Elks organizations. They were segregated. One white, one colored. They played on the Colored Elks baseball team of North Media. Not to be outdone, South Media also had a baseball team, and this image is from the 1906 team called the South Media Fire Club. If you recognize any of the pictures of the images in these pictures, please let us know, because we have no knowledge of who these men are. So if you see something that is familiar to you, please let us know. After 1850, media became a vacation spot for the wealthy from Philadelphia, northern Delaware, and even New Jersey. And media had many fine hotels and restaurants. One of the finest hotels was called the Idlewild Hotel, and it was located just a few blocks away south of Baltimore Avenue. And one thing that distinguished the wait staff at the Idlewild is they were impeccably dressed all the time. You can see that they were always attired in tuxedos every day. Both of my maternal and paternal ancestors endured many hardships, and my paternal side of the family produced Reverend William Henry Lemon, who actually made his contribution to the media community by being one of the early pastors here at Second Baptist Church. So not only were Cornelius and Martha Jane members of Campbell, Uncle Henry was a pastor here at Media. Mr. Kane Mr. Benson were models for the Soldiers and Sailors Monument outside the courthouse. My great uncle, George Washington, born a slave, helped lay the foundation for the 3rd Media High School. So don't let anyone tell you that African Americans did not make significant contributions to the history of media and continue to make contributions to the memory of media. Thank you.